You're listening to the GamesIndustry.biz Microcast. I'm James Batchelor, Editor-in-Chief of GamesIndustry.biz. I am joined, as always, by Head of GamesIndustry.biz, Christopher Dring. I don't know why I almost forgot your name there.
That's very forgettable.
It's very, very forgettable. I think it's because I'm still kind of recovering from Develop Brighton. As you can hear, I've still got kind of morning voice from yesterday morning, the day after our GI summer party. How are you feeling post? Because you were only down for 2 days of the conference.
Yeah, I'm alright. It was good. I didn't really go into the conference. I always enjoy it. It's a good industry. All the UK industry comes together for that thing. And the party was decent. You know, the football was on and England won, so there was a good vibe. And yeah, it was decent. I say that the mood was a bit down. I felt in the industry camp.
Yeah,
I think it was a bit of a glum overall mood. Obviously, small redundancies sort of crept out over the last couple of weeks, and there's not a lot to talk about sort of games wise or in the market. And I think we're sort of in that sort of slow period right now. I'm still confident things will bounce back towards the end of the year and particularly into 2025. But
I didn't want to take us too far down the road that we've gone on a lot of previous microcasts about how it's very tough, but it's going to turn around at some point. I think we've kind of reinforcing this message as much as we can. But yeah, that was my big takeaway from. I spent 2 days at the conference as well because I had to head back early on the Thursday, and the overall vibe is just people are kind of hanging in there. It was kind of great. There's a lot of kind of the positivity in terms of like seeing each other. As you said, it's always great when people gather at an event like this. A lot of the conference talks are very much kind of lessons learned, advice on going forward and so forth. But there's this underlying thing of but everything's not great at the moment. Like one of the so I gave a talk. I kind of constructed a session, which was a series of micro talks, and I was talking to someone immediately after that session, and someone was telling me like they're kind of consulting with a number of studios at the moment, and at this point it's like these are studios who have got 2 or 3 months. I have no idea who the studios are. I don't know the size of them and so forth. But these studios have 2 or 3 months left, and at this point it is just kind of controlling, limiting the damage, as it were, and kind of trying to reach that. Trying to use that runway as best they can, knowing what is going to happen, and that
one of the interviews I did during Develop Brighton. I did one interview, and the person told me that basically they were hoping to do another round of funding, and they had to just make their previous round last as much as possible to get them to the launch of their game, and that extending the runway for those sort of money is what's important. But for some studios, they're just making it last as long as they can, hoping for a bounce back in investment. There has been an uptick in investment since the start of the year, but it's still very low and it's still very, very difficult to get. But that's what everyone said. Survive till 25. It's the horrible little catchphrase that seems to dominate the business at the minute.
So that was the theme of my talk was surviving 2024 or surviving until 2025, and I kind of said at the start we're kind of halfway there. It's July. We are halfway through, but 6 months is a long time. And there is a very kind of make or break kind of attitude among a lot of people. I saw a social media post this morning regarding a Kickstarter for a studio that has basically reduced its team as little as it can, is kickstarting one last game because they really struggle to get funding at GDC, and they say this is it. We need this campaign to go well to secure the future of this studio.
Kickstarter,
they're kind of £10,000 or $10,000 ahead of their target, but you still get the sense from their posts it's still not quite enough. It's tough.
Yeah, it is, and people are it's shareholders and money people and everyone. It's actually not just them. The whole world is a bit impatient at the minute about everything. There is no, and we had that Sean Layden piece where he talked about patience, and I think it's a global social problem at the minute. There is, I know the market's going to bounce back next year. I'm so confident in it that I would almost state it as fact that there will be a lot of green shoots next year. There will still be some negative stories, but overall we'll see more. The mood will start to shift hopefully towards the back end of this year, but certainly throughout 2025. And and so hold on. right?
Yeah.
Hold on, shareholders, be patient. Your money's coming. And if you can keep hold of your staff, if you can keep hold of your, institutional knowledge that you've got, you'll be in a good place to capitalise when the market does start to rise again. He says. This isn't what we're going to talk about.
That wasn't what we were going to talk about. No. I've finished briefly. At the end of my talk, I did kind of a recap of all the advice that people had given, and two of the big points were, exactly what you said. Look after your team and keep going, and that is the vibe at the moment. Is look after your team and keep going, and so hopefully we'll see that in the next 6 months to a year. But no, you're right, that absolutely is not what we were going to talk about today. As the episode of this Microcast should indicate, I imagine, we are going to be talking about the Xbox Game Pass price hike. So this came out middle of the week. Xbox are increasing the price of the existing tiers. So Game Pass Core, which used to be Game...
Do you want me to explain this?
I was going to explain it, and then you can have an opinion. That was my plan.
Yeah. Well, it's such a complicated explaining what all these different. I was going to write this in the opinion piece. I was going to go, and I thought this is 3 paragraphs trying to explain what all these differences, how it's changed, and why it matters. And it's like it's. It's
the short version, the really short version, which I attempted in the newsletter, is all the existing tiers have gone up in price. There's a new standard Xbox Game Pass standard tier, which does not come with the day one releases for any new games, and they're not taking any more subscribers for Game Pass for consoles, I believe.
No, but it does come with multiplayer. This is where you start getting down the thing. So obviously, beforehand there was Xbox Game Pass Core, which was basically used to be Xbox Live Gold. It's what you pay for online multiplayer. There was a few other bits you get with it as well, but that's basically what it is. Then there's Xbox Game Pass. Then there's the next tier is almost split in two. There's Xbox Game Pass for console, which doesn't include online multiplayer, but does give you the access to pretty much all, and I'll explain that in a minute, pretty much all of the games you can get in Game Pass. Every first-party game, everything, day and date. And there's also Xbox Game Pass for PC, which is the PC equivalent of the console one. And that's tier 2. And then tier 3 is Ultimate, and Ultimate includes PC, it includes console, it includes online multiplayer, it includes streaming, it includes EA Play, which is what I was alluding to earlier, which is a different subscription service. It's got loads of stuff in there, and that is what the service is. And obviously Microsoft's changes is that the price is going up for all of them, right? So price is going up for every single one of those. Core's monthly price is staying the same, but their annual price is going up, and I suspect most people pay for that annually. But what they've done is they've got rid of Xbox Game Pass for console if you're not already, for new subscribers. Old subscribers can still get it. And Xbox Game Pass Standard is coming into it. Xbox Game Pass Standard is more of an obvious step up. So Xbox Game Pass Standard is the core. So you got the online multiplayer, and you get Game Pass games in it. But what you don't get are the brand new for release on the day they come out Xbox games. So it's older titles. So that's the changes. And they've also making it in some countries. They're stopping you stacking too many Game Pass. So you used to be able to stack enough.
Oh yeah.
So you can have 3 years basically worth of Game Pass. You can buy for them now, and you can get Game Pass for the next 3 years. Microsoft in some countries, not the big ones, but in some countries they've scaled that back so you can only now stack for 13 months. Anyway, all of it is that basically the prices have gone up. And they've added a standard mode, which I actually think is a good thing. I think standard's good because it's a I think there are lots and lots of gamers actually who just subscribe to Game Pass because they want a library of titles. It doesn't matter. They don't mind too much if it's day and date. And it's important to still have that entry level one. And I don't think, and 74% of, according to Ampere analysis, 74% of people who subscribe to Game Pass on console subscribe to the ultimate version. So really, although the prices are going up, basically the point of contention is that if you wanted to get Game Pass and games day and date, you can currently spend $11 to get it, but in a couple of months' time it'll cost you $20, which is quite a leap. Yeah. But the reality is, I don't think the leap's anywhere. I think the truth is the reality is not quite that significant.
No, you're right. Like it makes sense to have a standard, kind of an entry level tier. As much as you're right, there are going to be people who just want a library of games and kind of they're not too fussed about having the newer releases. Equally, there are people who just want to have access to multiplayer. I remember the grumbling when Xbox Live Gold was going to be not retired, but rebranded into Game Pass Core, and I remember. Anecdotally, I remember grumbling from Xbox fans and some Xbox owning friends that I don't need this. I don't want the library. I just want to be able to play Call of Duty.
You don't get the library with it, yeah. So it's the you get some games, but the standard thing. I think the standard thing is people. There's some people online going, what's the point of Game Pass if you don't get the games day and date? And PlayStation Plus is very popular, and Nintendo Switch Online doesn't even have their games are 20 years old in that service. So
no, almost every other entertainment subscription service, like if you're on Disney Plus, you do not get new movies day and date on Disney Plus when they.
You do get new TV shows. You get a load of new stuff.
You do get you get those, but I mean like the new cinema releases, they're still coming like a few months down the line. Like just because these titles aren't coming day and date, they are still going to come to this service later. Yeah.
And some people that's fine.
Yeah.
And that's why standard works. And thing is, though, Ultimate is the vision, right? It's PC, it's cross-play, it's cross-platform, it's streaming, it's a massive library of games. That's the full Game Pass plan, and it's a very attractive product, even at the price increases. So the prices have gone up basically, which was inevitable because it's costing them more and more and more money to run the service. The console install base isn't getting any bigger really for Game Pass. They're not seeing any growth on console because I suspect their attach rate. I understand actually their attach rate on console is very high. They've got a great opportunity on PC. This is where there is a slight point of contention amongst hardcore fans, in that if you want to get day and date Xbox games on PC, you can pay $12 a month for Game Pass for PC. Yeah. If you want it on console, it's going to cost you $20 if you need Game Pass Ultimate. So there is $8 cheaper a month to get first party Xbox games on PC. And of course, console players feeling a little bit, with Microsoft putting more and more of its Xbox games on other platforms, they're probably feeling a little bit anxious about Microsoft's approach to console. But really, the Microsoft's doing that for several reasons, and one of the reasons being that PC is still a growth area for them. They've still got millions and millions of customers they can convert into Game Pass on PC, and they don't really. And game Call of Duty is a great opportunity for them to do that, and Blizzard games and all that sort of great opportunity to do that. And so they're probably a little bit more cautious around hiking the prices too much on PC.
You've written an opinion piece around this, which is live on the site now, kind of covering some of these points we've already been talking about. But I think what I loved was your overall point of this price hike and this change in the new tier. It kind of demonstrates three things. One is the need for profitability, which kind of speaks to our earlier conversation just about how the state of the market right now. The strength of the lineup, and as you kind of point out, this change comes just after the June showcase where they showed off Call of Duty and Fable and South of Midnight and Indiana Jones and Avowed, and there's a lot of great games coming that will be day and date if you're on Ultimate, etc. Had they announced this a month before that showcase, this would have gone down a lot worse than it already has.
But even if a lot of those games are quite far out. But if you look at the games that are coming this year, when this increase happens, it's happening in September. And then between that point and the end of the year, you're going to get Avowed, you're going to get Microsoft Flight Simulator 2024, you're going to get Indiana Jones, and you're going to get Call of Duty. That's quite a Q4 slate,
that's
really.
That's just the first party games. I always forget, whenever you're watching the showcase, I remember watching some of the third party ones, and those launch day and date on some of the third party ones, not the major EA, Ubisoft sort of third party, but some of the smaller third party games do launch day and date, and all right, they're not going to move the needle in the way that Call of Duty or Indiana Jones or Microsoft Flight Simulator.
Oh, some of them might,
but some of them might, and some of them might. That might convince someone. I'll go for Game Pass rather than
Power World was a Game Pass game. Let's not forget. So it's interesting. I think I was, there was doubt, and I said it on this podcast. I was speculating that Microsoft might scale back its Game Pass, and for the reason for that is Game Pass isn't growing on console. It's growing on PC, but it's a small base. They're you can see the performance of their first party games. I picked on Starfield a little bit, not doing as well as I thought it was going to do, but Hellblade 2 didn't get in the top 100 in Europe. Right, and you sit there and you go, I don't know. Does putting games day and date make sense? Is it delivering them the money? There isn't a lot of marketing around these games, and I'm not surprised because there isn't much margin on marketing these games. If you had these games, if the people were spending $60-$70 for these titles, maybe you'd see stronger marketing campaigns which would involve better performance. So I was speculating that they might move away from subscription, or not move away from subscription, but move away from day and date. And And actually, they've gone the opposite. And then that was the big thing that I noticed at the showcase. Every single game that they showed that was first party ended with play it day one on Game Pass, right? Yeah. Including games that, at least 2026, right? Yeah. And so you're sitting there, they're committed to this for the long term. They really are. And if there's any doubt, there should be no doubt now. The price rises is not them scaling back from Game Pass. It's them actually saying, look, we need to get the numbers. We need to get some growth on this. Ampere, I think it will result in a 15% increase in annual revenue per user for next year, which is obviously significant. And so that's the play, and I think this is all part of that. And I've had my doubts and questions around subscription. I still do, but there is no denying that subscription has the potential to get people playing more games. And in a market where everyone's you're in a world where people are only playing. This is the thing, right? There's a contradiction in this. Right? I often say the problem you've got, Game Pass has got, is there are so many gamers only play 2 or 3 games a year, maybe even less, right? There are a million people on PlayStation that only play Call of Duty, right? That's the world we live in. And if you sit there and you go, well, how are you going to convince those people to subscribe to a service for 100 or 100 with hundreds of games in it? And the truth is, but if you can do that, if you can convince some Call of Duty players that only play 1 or 2 games a year to subscribe to Game Pass this year, and it opens up a huge library of games that they might experience, that's potentially a good thing. Obviously, there's a lot of what-ifs in this, but let's imagine you are a Call of Duty player, you only play Call of Duty and FIFA, say, a year, and you've got yourself Game Pass, and you start playing other things. And sure, and some of those things might have microtransactions in them or whatever. Now, your overall spend might go down. You might end up spending less on Call of Duty as a result of this. You might end up spending a bit on Sea of Thieves and a bit on some indie games or whatever. But the advantage, that means that spend goes down, but actually spend is being spread across more titles, and that I think is positive for the business. So that's a very hypothetical scenario. Yeah. But ultimately we don't really know what would happen if subscription becomes significantly more mainstream, and we don't know if it ever will. But I'm sort of interested that Microsoft's going for it. I'm interested to see what the results will be, and I'm not entirely negative about it. I know that there's concerns about it might hurt revenue for the industry overall. We have seen fewer games are being sold on PlayStation and Xbox this generation than last generation. There'll be multiple reasons for that. Subscription isn't the only one, but subscription might be one. So there's a lot of anxiety around it, but there will be positives to the 2 new business models as well as negatives. And I think we sort of have to focus on the positives a little bit more than we have been. That's a long waffle there, James. Sorry, did you ask me a question?
I love your long waffles. It's all good. No, I didn't ask you a question. I think you interrupted my point, but your point.
Oh, what was your point?
Fine. No. My point was to steal your points, so it's fine. Absolutely fine. No, you're right. I'm similar. Like, I don't think subscription is ever going to become the main way that we interact with video games. I don't think it's ever going to become the major business model the way it has in kind of video on demand, etc. But I think it's always going to be an option, and Microsoft is determined to make sure it's always an attractive option. Like, it's choice now. Every form of entertainment, but particularly video games, has all become about choice. It's not just you go down the shop and buy the games. That hasn't been true for so long. You can buy them directly via the console. You can, and now you can subscribe and have a library of games. Like, there are different ways to get your games. And I think subscription is always going to be one of those. I am intrigued to see what Call of Duty does to this. I think we've said before that Call of Duty is going to be one of, if not the biggest test for the subscription model in terms of, here's this biggest game. Are people who, as you point out in your piece, people are more than happy to pay $70 a year for a new Call of Duty. Those are going to be the hardest people to convince to subscribe. Well,
maybe not. This is the bit that I really hope Microsoft pay attention to, and maybe they could do it for Call of Duty. Is their marketing for you can talk about your advert in a minute, James. Yeah. The marketing for Xbox Game Pass hasn't been. I've been quite disappointed in it. Right, so Starfield came out, and it was there was a lot of owned channels have been promoting Starfield, but there was very little mainstream marketing for it. This is, I thought, Starfield's a thing that could help you sell consoles. Starfield's a game that can help you get Game Pass subscribers. Why wasn't that everywhere? Like, I'm used to the old Halo launches where they were making big stunts around these things, and big entertainment launches. These things, there's a lot of hype in the build up to it, but then they sort of come out quietly. And I understand that's because subscription doesn't bring in the revenue. So if your games aren't making that much money, it's hard to justify big marketing spend. Call of Duty is a multi-platform game, right? If he's going to marketing that game, sure, you might not make as much money on Xbox as it used to because of Game Pass, but it's still going to make a load of money on PlayStation. Its margin is going to be a lot higher than in Indiana Jones potentially, right? So naturally it's going to make a lot of money because it's Call of Duty, but it gives Microsoft opportunity to, when it is marketing the game for PlayStation and PC and all other platforms, it can be messaging Game Pass at the same time in a mainstream way, in a mass market way that it's not done before. And I think that's the key thing, because if you can, you're saying it's hard to convince people that are happy to pay $70. You're right, but if you can say, you know what, you can pay $70, or you know what, $20 right, a month, and we'll give you Indiana Jones.
Yeah.
And we'll give you every Call of Duty game that you might have missed.
We'll
give you the Battlefield games on EA Play.
I wonder if that's going to be like, this is speculation, but I wonder if like one of their Gamescom announcements will be, and all the Call of Duties are now on Game Pass.
There's rumour there's Modern Warfare 3's coming.
That's the rumour, yeah. The rumour is Modern Warfare 3 is coming. But then everyone's got that one already. Like, you want to get Call of Duty people into Game Pass ahead of Black Ops 6.
Did you not see Modern Warfare 3 sale? I don't think anyone bought it.
No, okay, fair enough. Okay. I know, but that one is readily available now. I like in my head, as a non-Call of Duty player, I grant you, in my head, if you want to get Call of Duty players onto Game Pass ahead of Black Ops 6, you put on the original Modern Warfare trilogy. You put on World at War. You put on
maybe I don't know. I think you have a problem there as well. If you put a load of Call of Duty games on the service, they go, actually, I don't want to play these. I'll play this one instead, these old ones instead. There'll be somebody there with some algorithms and numbers and data who will make the right choice for that.
No.
But yeah, I'm intrigued by it. I think Call of Duty is the test, though. What you were saying, though, I think there is an opportunity, and I'd be really excited if they're able to get Call of Duty players to play more games. I think that's a real good win for the industry. However, if it doesn't move the needle for Game Pass, I don't know what will.
No, absolutely.
And I think, but right now Microsoft's going for it. Right, there's no hiding from it. They're really going for it, and I know they're committed to it. And there is some concern around the impact of subscription on the industry, but right now the industry's a bit of disruption is probably what we need about now, and maybe subscription can deliver that for us. Call of Duty and Game Pass can deliver that for us,
and they're going for it in a way that isn't. And we kind of talked about this, like when they first started pushing Game Pass, and the idea. I think we all got caught up in the speculation of maybe they'll drop Xbox entirely and they'll just become this kind of subscription ecosystem, but. My point, they're really going for it now in terms of pushing not just Game Pass, but the fact that Game Pass is not specific to Xbox or even PC. So we've seen a lot of partnerships over the last few years. They've partnered with Samsung for its smart TVs. The big partnership the last month or so was Amazon. So if you get the newest Fire Sticks, the Fire Stick Max 4K or something, whatever the model number is, you can. It's an app. Game Pass is an app. And you just stream the games on all that, and they're really kind of pushing that. There's a new TV ad, which I believe I forced you to watch just before we recorded.
You forced me to watch just before we recorded this, yeah.
This has been doing the rounds for about a week, and the headline's like, new Xbox ad tells you don't need an Xbox to play Xbox games. And I was like, okay, well that's smart ad. Is good that they're kind of emphasising that. You can do it on streaming, you can do it on mobile, you can do it on Fire Stick. Yeah, I see why. What I didn't realise until literally this morning was the tone of that ad. It's just weird. It's a parody of the opening of Scream, the 90s slasher horror movie, where someone gets a call by someone with a deep and kind of obfuscated voice.
Drew Barrymore, wasn't it? Was it Drew Barrymore?
I can't remember. But I mean, in the ad, like someone is calling a person at home alone. It's like, do you like video games? It's like, and it's like, you don't need an Xbox to play Xbox games. Weird, creepy vibes. And then they cough at the end and they clear their voice. Like, so what do you want to play? Like, I don't understand why they've gone for this weird horror vibe. It does get the message across, and it's memorable enough that I'm talking about it. I don't know how many people nowadays would catch up onto the reference unless you are of a certain age, certain generation.
It is an iconic moment, though, isn't it?
It's an iconic moment.
The opening to Scream.
But the fact they've gone with this weird kind of live action parody advert rather than, it's not just like a sizzle reel of all the games and then a Fire Stick pops up and then just the slogan, you don't need an Xbox to play Xbox. Like, they could have gone with that. I mean, it's a really interesting choice. But the fact that they've done that, the fact that they've kind of gone to the efforts for this for this ad, and I suspect more will be along the line. I would be if I were in marketing, I'd be making a whole series of "you don't need Xbox to play Xbox ads." Like that's your core message, and I think we'll hear that.
And it's an
message
Amazon
a lot.
thing, right? So it's clearly a co-promotion with Amazon, right?
Yeah.
Because Amazon ends on the Fire Stick, right? And that's the thing. That's a great partnership because Samsung's cool because you've got Samsung TVs, but Amazon's like, if Amazon can get behind Game Pass.
Yeah.
Right, in some way, and of course Amazon's got their own subscription service, their own games things. So there is some conflict there, but if Amazon can start doing some pushing around Game Pass, that's a great mainstream delivery of that marketing. And it was Drew Barrymore at the opening of Scream. I was just questioning myself there back in 1996. But that's the other bit of this. Like, is this going multi-platform, right, and being beyond. I'm a part of me goes with the marketing for. Do they need to drop Xbox? Right?
Okay,
Does Xbox have a certain connotation around? A certain. It's a very gamer brand.
Yeah.
And and it's also very much about a box.
Yeah.
I'm picturing. You remember the moment Nintendo came out with the Wii and they changed the sort of branding and it was all this sort of silvery sort of like, we're no longer. They moved away from the sort of red and bouncy and kiddie stuff.
This.
They've gone back to that now.
Yeah.
But they went away. I wouldn't. If Xbox came out and it wasn't green anymore and it was like, I wouldn't. But here's the thing. I think that kind of overhaul might help.
I don't recall any green in that advert. I could be. I mean, I only watched it. I watched it a good few hours ago, but I don't recall any green in that advert. They've kind of already done this. Like Xbox PC Game Pass launched as Xbox Game Pass for PC, and then they just changed it to PC Game Pass. That was largely a clarification thing, but it showed that they recognise they're not reliant on the Xbox brand to sell Game Pass. The Game Pass is the brand, and a fair number of people just shorten it to Game Pass, like websites and media outlets and so forth. We'll just refer to it as Game Pass.
And I think there is people there are some Xbox console purists that don't like the fact that they believe that Xbox should still be going for the console war battle, but I don't actually think. I think what they're doing is quite interesting, and I've said this in the opinion piece. I do think they should rip the plaster off when it comes to games coming to other platforms. Because I think yes, it's going to impact sales of consoles, but I actually really think the model works. If you can sit there and make good premium sales on your games through other platforms, and your platform is about delivering that in a buffet thing, I think it works. I think it could work, and I think it's quite a clear differentiator. Sort of right now, it's like some of them coming to PlayStation. Is all of them coming to PlayStation? And they started off with 4, and now they've added Doom, and now they're gonna it's like what point
we've had this since they took over ZeniMax. Like every Bethesda release, they're like, oh, is this multi-platform? Is it? Is it exclusive? Like Starfield was.
I look at Hellblade. I look at Hellblade, not in the top 100. That game, I don't know if the game's any good. I haven't played it, and I read some of the reviews, and some of them said it was great, and some of them didn't. But that's for me is a game that's a PlayStation. It's very PlayStation, right? It's a single player, visually cinematic, sort of God of War vibe. Sort of experience, and I think you put that on PlayStation, that game gets in the top 100, gets in the top 10, I'd say, right? And I'm just sort of going, but that doesn't take away from the fact that you can get it a lot cheaper, a lot more immediately and readily in Game Pass. I guess there is a balance. Obviously, you don't want to completely decimate your platform business, but and maybe there's a boiling the frog style approach to the marketing here of like, it's one game and now it's another game and now it's another day, and eventually we're all sort of completely used to it and it's no longer a thing. But I don't know, I probably would have taken the ripping the plaster off approach. I can just picture it. Imagine the Xbox showcase was Phil Spencer coming out on, instead it was on video, but like coming out and going, this is the new Xbox, and we got a new sort of Game Pass logo at the back behind him, and it's like, we are now for everybody, and all of our games coming to all platforms, and this event is as much for our Xbox fans as it is for PlayStation fans and Nintendo fans.
Even if it's
I'm sure you would have got some of the fanboys furious about it, but actually, I can't think anyone could paint that as a negative. I think that would have been great. But even if it's they're smarter than me when it comes to this.
Even if it's play it first on Xbox, that thing at the end, like play it day one with Game Pass, like even if it's play it first with Xbox, like you get it. You get it early on Xbox, or you wait a month or so and you get it on PlayStation. Like, I would be intrigued to know. I'd love to know, like, kind of behind the scenes in those Microsoft boardrooms, how much influence those Xbox fans have, because I honestly feel like I agree. I agree. The ripping the Band-Aid approach would be better, and then just come out as, all right, this is the vision of Xbox now. We are now multi-platform. We still have our own platforms, etc. I think you're right. But just look at the speculation, the rage, the boycotts, the nonsense that happened before they said anything earlier this year, when rumours were that Indiana Jones was coming to PS5 and others, like, and they did that very kind of cautious. Well, we've got 4 games and we're doing like, that was only 6 months ago.
Good question. Good question. I mean, Xbox, invited these people in. They made them ambassadors. They made them sort of, and they were invited to that showcase. I made a comment in the. It was like, oddly, during the Doom trailer, which was a game that's coming to PS5. There was one of the people in the room went, "Whoa, PlayStation sucks!" in the middle of. They was invited there by Xbox. Like, and it's like, that's the sort. I'm like, okay. That isn't Xbox's fault that person is a bit fanboy, but do these people, okay, there is always going to be a bit of PR management, and I'm not a PR, and so I can sit there and say I think you should rip the Band-Aid off, but I am not an expert.
I recognise like you need a loyal community of people behind your brand or supporting your brand. You need that in any kind of entertainment industry. You need like a base of loyal supporters from which to grow a larger audience, or at least to kind of attract a larger audience, etc. But I do have to question how much of a hold that loyal brand has, that loyal cohort has.
Yeah.
I'm not saying for a second here that every single decision Xbox management make is, well, what will they say on Twitter? I'm not saying that, but I do wonder if it is an influence, if it is a factor, and if it shouldn't be, if they should just kind of brave it. And I recognise the kind of in the console world that these fanboys believe they're in.
Yeah, but I think you need to remember that Xbox has been stung by this before, right? It was the fans that turned on them initially around the Xbox One launch, and that spiraled into a shift in. And I think, and if and I think there is an element of PTSD from that incident, perhaps there might be going on behind the scenes. So I don't think it's necessarily that the people with the hashtag Xbox tax around every article anyone ever writes about video games is necessarily influencing their decisions, but I think they're very mindful of community impact and saying the right things and doing things that brings everyone along with them on the journey they're going on.
I guess I think you're right. I think to rephrase my point is then, like, I worry that they're being too mindful of this very, very vocal minority.
Maybe. But they know it better than us.
They do.
I'm going to trust them.
This is why we don't run Xbox. This is why we run Microcast that definitely go overtime every week. So.
Well, do we have time to talk about the biggest story of the week?
We do.
James?
We absolutely do, because I'm intrigued.
Who is
Emio? Enmo? I can't. Their identity is such a mystery that I can't even remember their name. Who is Emio?
It's not Elmo.
It's not Elmo, as I googled earlier. This is a weird one. Nintendo adds trailers and teasers to its YouTube channels every month or so that for upcoming games and so. And one just appeared, and it's a teaser for a horror game, or certainly has horror leanings. And it's just the message kind of is, who is Emio? There's been no announcement about this. It's got like kind of the Nintendo branding, but it could be like a
yeah, there's no third-party branding attached to it. No. I mean, it doesn't mean it's not an outsourced studio.
That's the thing. It could be a second party. It could be a second-party thing. It could be a third-party thing that Nintendo are partnering with. No one knows. And there's speculation. The most convincing speculation I've seen is that it's Bloober Team.
Because they said they're doing something on a Nintendo platform.
They're doing something on Nintendo, and they apparently this project is called Project M, and Emio, and it's like I personally, and I know this is unlikely, I quietly hope it's Kojima. If he's doing OD for Xbox and he's doing a tactical espionage game for PlayStation, where's our Kojima? Where's our Nintendo game?
He's doing Death Stranding 2 as well. Is there room for a fourth game at Kojima Productions?
Oh, God knows. Is there room for 3? Honestly, we don't know. But no, it's more likely to be Bloober Team. But
I don't know. Yes, what's funny is it's Nintendo, right? Yeah. It's a horror game. It looks like a horror game by Nintendo. Whether Nintendo are developing it internally or it's a external studio and they're publishing it, regardless. They're obviously going for a teaser campaign, which is fun for Nintendo. They don't do that normally. Normally, it's a direct drop.
It's a really unusual move for them.
Well, they do something. The Labo approach. They did something different approach with
Yeah.
that. Games that sort of don't fit their core demographic, they do sometimes do something different with.
Okay.
Right. So they, and they have, but they haven't had this for a while.
No.
But it is certainly it was I think the Japanese that appeared on the screen during the trailer was Smiling Man, and the person with the bag on their head looks so frankly terrifying, and the fans are having a field day by suggesting that it's a Smash Brothers character, and it's the person that will come for you if you leak Nintendo information on podcasts.
VG247's piece is basically, until we are told otherwise, we are taking it as it's the next Mario villain.
yeah.
How's it taking a day off and it's man in bag?
What I would have thought though is they would have done a little bit few more breadcrumbs.
Yeah.
To do, because right now it's just a bit of a thing and a hashtag who is Emio, and it's like, and then they stopped, and I thought, well, right now it's a good time. What a wonderful time to do a little bit of a teaser marketing campaign in a period of quiet, really, for the games industry. It's an intriguing little thing.
It really is.
Yeah, fun. That's nice to have a bit of fun in the midst of all the serious business
to
stuff.
have something to talk about other than absolute misery. No, I'm intrigued. I was trying to remember the last time Nintendo had any direct association with a horror game. Like, I know I think they published do they publish or they partner with Koei Tecmo for the Fatal Frame games.
Fatal Frame, yeah.
But I'll just my head. This is just me and me being of a certain age. My head goes straight back to Eternal Darkness.
Yeah, Eternal Darkness was a game that they funded and published, and it was their IP, right? So there's a bit of that, and I've always wanted Night Dive to do a remake of. I think that's a perfect game to remaster.
Yes,
wonderful little game,
absolutely.
But underappreciated gem, that one. Love to see that come back to life. Nintendo does stuff. I mean, it's true they don't do a lot of horror, but Bayonetta's not exactly a kids
no, that is true.
fair, and Nintendo does have this sort of adult thing. They've just added the 18 rated Nintendo 64 stuff there, so they've got a bit Perfect Dark going on, and Turok, and so they do this stuff.
Going to be added to that, right? That's surely.
I'd love that.
I know. I know
But isn't Resident Evil 2 already on there? Was it?
No.
It's, there's a game rather
possibly,
than a. But yeah.
We've completely derailed this, so I'm going to wrap us up. Thank you so much for joining us, dear viewer or listener. You can get all the previous episodes of the Microcast on the podcasting platform of your choice. So simply search for the GamesIndustry.biz Microcast. No, GamesIndustry.biz Podcast. That's the name of the feed. And we're on the YouTube channel. You can get more news, insight, analysis, and last-minute Chris Trigg opinion pieces over at GamesIndustry.biz. Thank you so much, and we will join you next week.
Bye.